Okay, algebra students, this is the first lesson for the rest of the week, Monday through Thursday and then Sunday. For each of these, you'll need to watch as I do the examples. You'll need to do the lesson practice, and then you'll need to do afterwards the reviewing, reteaching the lessons, 46, 47, and 48. So this one is simplifying expressions with square roots and higher order roots. Look at the the new concept. Okay, I don't think you guys will find this too difficult. Okay, so let's take a look at these. Let's go ahead and do the first two. Okay, so the first is, excuse me, the first is we have the square root of 64. Okay, remember what that means? The square root of 64 is what number times itself. What number times itself? Okay, so yeah, square root of 64, remember you're thinking to yourself, what number times itself gives me? And the answer is 8. Very simple. Okay, look at B. Alright, now B has the negative square root of 9. And this negative, notice, is outside the square root. And that's very important, because what you're going to do is you're not going to look at the negative right now. You're going to look at the square root of 9. You're going to say to yourself again, what number times itself gives me 9? And the answer is 3. And the negative just comes down with it. So the answer is negative 3. Okay? Now that is important because the negative is outside. Okay? Now I'll show you why later. Alright? So then we have one that gives a lot of people trouble for some reason, the square root of 0. What's the square root of 0? What number times itself gives me 0? 0. If you have a fraction, like 4 over 25, just look at it as a top and a bottom. So what's the square root of 4? Would be 2. What's the square root of 25? The answer is 5. Okay, very simple. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, so example, so the E has the negative I was telling you about. Okay, so what do you do with that? Well, think of it. Think about it. Okay, we have the square root of the negative square root of 36. Okay, what that means is what number times itself gives me negative 36? Well, any number times itself would give you a positive number. Okay, you know, don't say negative 6, because negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. So there isn't a number times itself that gives me a negative 36. So in this case, the answer is no solution. All right. Later on, when you deal with imaginary numbers, you'll see something that will, like, for example, they'll have 6i, where I signifies the square root of negative 1. But you don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, the answer is no real solution. Okay, no real solution. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, all right, example 2. All right, now here's getting some new things. Example 2, we have the cube root. All right, the cube root of 64. Okay, just the square root is what number times itself gives me 64. In this case, with the cube root, it's what number times itself 3 times gives me 64. Okay, so what number times itself gives me 64? So you're going to have to look in at a calculator, but a lot of times you can put the cube root in. You can think in terms of, okay, what number times itself gives me. And notice this will jump up real quickly. All right, let's try 4. Okay, 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is, sure enough, 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4. All right, the cube root of negative 8. Now in this case, you can have a negative underneath, because what number times itself gives me a negative 8? Well, let's do negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And there you go. Okay, so cube roots will have negatives. Okay, the cube root of, the fourth root of 81. Okay, and again, these will jump up very quickly. So what number times itself 4 times gives me 81? All right. I would say let's try 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So the fourth root of 81 is 3. Okay. The fourth root of -1 is no real solution. The key here is if it's an even root there. If it's an even one, it can't have a negative underneath. If there's a negative underneath, then that is no solution. Okay. All right. Simplifying expressions with fractional exponents. All right. Here we go. This is getting into something new, but also not hard, but something that you need to be aware of. When you have fractional exponents, for example, the first one is 216 to the 1/3 power. What that means is it means the cube root of 216. Okay, the cube root of 216. Let's see, and it is 6. Okay, 6 times itself 3 times gives me 6 times 6 times 6 gives me 216. So the 216 to the 1/3 power is 6. Okay, what number times itself? All right, and same thing. To the 1/3 power means the cube root. All right, so the cube root of -27. What number times itself 3 times gives me a -27? The answer is -3. Okay. The fourth root. The fourth root of 10,000. What number times itself? It would be 10. And the fourth root of -256 again, because it's a even power here, or that would be a no solution. Okay. Example 4 for volume. It says a gift box in the shape of a cube has a volume of 3,375 cubic inches. What is the side length of the box? For volume, remember it's side cubed, so you would just take the cube root of 375, and the answer is 15. Go ahead and try the lesson practice here on page, let's see, you should have it on your sheet, but it's page 290, A through N. You have some here. Okay. Good luck.